hang on.
Found something.
A weird thing.
It's a heavy, weird thing. Bring it.
What is it?
Never mind.
Tell me what you're not telling me.
That is...
Pull to open.
Pull to open.
Yes, and what do you do?
I'm a much bigger bang than you bargained for. I'm a lot more explosive than I look, and honey, I know how I look.
You're giving me orders now.
I am a higher dimension life form. I am a complex space-time event.
If it goes wrong, you will be caught in the blast.
Well, let's get it right then.
Hello, and boom goes the dynamite. Hello, and welcome to Pull to Open, normally a very random quest to watch all of Doctor Who in random order, and today we are doing something a little more explosive. My name is Chris Taylor.
And here, balanced on one foot, I'm Pete Pachal. No, I wish I was balanced on one foot. I wish I had that kind of poise, the poise of a Time Lord who knows he cannot move. But no, I'm a little more fidgety. I'm going around. I wouldn't last 2 seconds on a landmine.
Yep.
Yeah. This is, and by the way, for the record, this is the third landmine the Doctor has stepped on. There might be more, but 3 confirmed. And he survived every one of them.
He has.
So, good job.
He's a little lucky. I'm sure that there are very few military folks who can claim the same. But yes, this is a hot take on Boom. And yes, it was actually inspired. I was just reading this in an interview with Moffat in Nerdist that, yes, it was absolutely 100% inspired by that landmine in Genesis of the Daleks.
Oh, yeah.
By the question of what would have happened if the Doctor had been stuck there for the whole episode.
Something we've all been wondering ever since that was broadcast in 1975.
Yeah, and apparently, 7-year-old Stephen Moffat or whatever he was, he thought about that then. So this is literally him using his vaunted position, and it is a vaunted position. Here he is, just able to write 1 episode per season and just drop the mic. To basically explore his childhood questions about Doctor Who.
I wonder if our poll in this podcast, if you go on Spotify, maybe it should be who is braver, Ruby or Harry?
Yeah, I mean, Harry is certainly more efficient. We've got to say that. And
just put a rock under the thing, man. Just put a rock. Come on. Why didn't Ruby? Isn't that in part of the companion quick start guide? If the Doctor steps on a landmine, just stuck a rock under it.
I'm glad we're going straight to Genesis of the Daleks here, because this Boom is another episode where I think, and I've said this many times on the podcast, there are so many things about the good writing of New Who, the better episodes of New Who, where it's not about the budget. It's not about how it looks. Right. It's a thing you could have done in the classic show.
By the way, before I forget, third one was Saranga Conundrum, everyone. So
there we go.
Just in case anyone's still hanging, what's the third one? We didn't forget. It's the Saranga Conundrum. But yeah, absolutely. The minimalist nature of this story was something that really struck me about it. And it sort of didn't occur to me until about, 25 minutes in or so. I was like, we're just going to stay here. We're not really going to see any more of this. I get it now. I might be a little slow on the uptake on some of these episodes. But as we were sort of nearing the end of the runtime, and honestly, it felt like it still was short. It felt short, even though it's not really. It's still a good solid 45 minutes or so.
Absolutely, very solid, very solid.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you said runtime, because of course that is the other thing that Moffat was thinking of. Once he sort of zoomed in on the landmine concept, he was like, what does the Doctor do if you take away the one thing that the Doctor always does? Or can always do, basically
right.
Run. If you take the
every episode
take the run out and the corridor out, and you just leave him in a quarry, unable to run, then you've got a very interesting constriction of kind of the rules of Doctor Who, right?
I saw that tease with Moffat, and I kind of forgot about it, where he goes I'm going to take the one thing that he always has or does, or I forget what it was, and I thought, the Sonic? We've seen him without the Sonic for seasons, back in the classic series, right? And it's I didn't even think about it as we were... It wasn't like something I was like, oh, what's it going to be? I did think for a second, maybe it's the companion. He takes away his friend, but we've seen that before.
Yeah, we have seen that before.
Yeah.
And wow, you are just teeing me up here, because you mentioned the Sonic, and I believe that the corporation that is mentioned in this, Villain Guard,
Villain guard. I mean,
Villain guard.
seriously.
Villain Guard was mentioned in The Empty Child Doctor's Dances
No way.
as the manufacturer of Captain Jack's 51st Century Sonic Blaster.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Damn.
This is Moffat going old school Moffat. He's dropping some Moffat bombs. We're standing on a Moffat landmine, and he's just dropped the mic.
Yeah. There were references, some subtle, some maybe they were so subtle, maybe I was the only one who read them. So, God, now I forget the obvious one. I was making notes and I forgot to make it, but there's a reference towards the end. Go,
to Villain Guard or to other stuff? I mean, there's Fish Fingers and Custard.
Fish Fingers and Custard.
Yes.
That was it. That was the one. Yes,
I was like, yeah, he's still Matt Smith on the inside.
So that's good. And I think for new viewers, it's just a random thing to say. So that's
exactly. But also the Anglican Marines.
Yeah, that was good.
Yes.
So that was echoey. It took me a minute to place it while I was watching. It's like, oh yeah, we've seen this before, which is interesting. And I actually really liked. That was one good bit of commentary. Yes. We can get to the other commentary, which I'm not as super into, but the commentary that the time where religion has been separate from military is a blip, when which is kind of, you think about it, that's interesting. That's a very, very astute point. And I like the somewhat pessimistic take on the future of that. Like it comes back around. Like not everything's just progress or what we perceive as progress.
Yeah, whenever Moffat brings in the church of the papal mainframe, we should say, or the Church of Silence, or just the church, of which the Anglican Marines are a subset. So this goes back to, if you don't know it, go back to season 6, season 7. And the Anglican Marines were actually season 5, right? They were, was it Time of the Angels?
That's right. Flesh and Stone, Time of Angels.
Yeah, so that's where we see them first. So he's making lots of references, but yeah, you don't have to go there. But the religion thing, it's not only echoing himself. I feel like he gets very Dune like that. It's get very Dune-esque, Well,
I also feel like he's kind of unmasking himself a little bit. I kind of felt like in the earlier episodes he wasn't quite as cynical as he is here, and here it's full on. Like the Doctor has a little speech about faith and how it's just giving yourself permission to not think. And I don't know if he means to sort of condemn religion in general there, but it certainly came across that way to me, which I felt was like, that's a little too on the nose, Stephen. I think you're a little above this level of like spelling it out dialogue. I don't know. It's
an exploration of faith. And by the way, another thing that came out of that interview is that he really, he doesn't, rule number 1, the Doctor lies, right? Remember Moffat gave us that. And he's all about that. He's all about, the Doctor is sort of a bit twisted in his own head. Like he thinks he's just an observer bouncing around the universe. But no, he wants to get in the middle of every fight that he sees. That's how he ends up here. So I like the exploration that the Doctor is exploring faith versus proof. There's that interesting thing where he tells next season's companion, we'll get there, the whole thing. Oh yeah, you need proof now, Faith Girl.
Yeah, exactly, because he's essentially shattering her faith.
Yeah, so there's a little bit about there is a certain measure of hypocrisy sometimes in organized religion. It doesn't necessarily be consistent. Do you need faith or do you need proof? Right. So that's one thing where it's like, religion should be able to hold up that standard. Which way you're going,
Yeah, true. I don't know. I don't want to get too much into down a rabbit hole of just debating religion and stuff. Yeah. But the idea that everything needs to be taken on faith or you have no proof. I mean, I think the study of theology and religious scholars understand it's a bit more nuanced than that. So I don't think you can explore it all in 45 minutes. I don't think Stephen Moffat's trying. I think he's trying to make a few points and lace some stuff from his previous era in. And I think generally that succeeds. So I would say whether or not you disagree or agree that religion is bad and then faith is just always bad. And his other point about war, again, I'd say that's even more cynical, which it can be. I mean, I get it. It's all just capitalism, and you're all just fighting yourselves, and it's all about people making money. I mean that's an interesting thing that they're doing here. I actually kind of like the reveal. But again, it's this sort of ultra simplistic point that's what I'm just saying. Sort of the morality of this episode feels pretty middle school to me. And does it need to be? I mean, does it need to be more sophisticated? Probably not. I think the stage he sets here is okay. But I'm not coming to this episode again for like, oh wow, it's so deep, or it's really making me question my beliefs or philosophy, get philosophical with it. No, it's just making some very sophomoric points, and easy ones. I'll say that too. That's the other point I'd make. I like, come on, we've seen this a million times, but particularly under Moffat, especially the anti-capitalism stuff. We saw it in Oxygen and a bunch of other stuff. I don't know. There's the one with the Titanic. I know that was Davies, but it's all like we've seen this time and again.
Thoughts and Prayers, by the way. Speaking of a phrase,
Thoughts and Prayers was good because that was a new twist on it. And it's a little behind the times though. Like I feel like criticism of like Thoughts and Prayers is at least like 10, 15 years old. And
it is, yeah. That was my feeling too. I mean, I'm glad to see it there. I don't think to your point, I don't think it gets in the way too much. It's not really, the episode is not saying, hey, we're making you think about this. It's actually just the episode is its primary job is to ratchet up the tension constantly.
Yeah.
With every minute. And so if you're not like, minute one of watching Boom, you're like, huh? And then you're like, your fingers in your mouth, and then you're like, you're watching between your fingers, and then you're hunched up on the couch, and then you're behind the couch. Like there should be that progression of like, this is getting so tense, I can't even stand it.
Yeah, and overall, like I say, I think even the background of the story, that the war algorithm is getting them to fight themselves, that is still interesting, even absent whether it's tied into some loose morality or not. So that was a nice sort of twist and reveal at the end. But to your point, 100%. Like the tension here is great. The device, the literal device of the landmine and the lights used to maximum effect because they, a few of the bars get filled in, and more than you think. It's always more than you think. Like, it doesn't just like a little bit and stops. No, it's like there's like I guess 4 of those rows, and the first time they do the thing in his hand, like 3 of them get filled in, right? Like, and it's just like, whoa, okay.
I gotta say, as someone who's been measuring my blood pressure a lot lately, that bit kind of hit home. I'm like, oh crap, it measures your blood pressure. Like, calm thoughts, because that's the great thing about it. By the way, Skyboat's song, third appearance in Doctor Who, first named appearance, first sung appearance. It was also played on the recorder in The Web of Fear. And then played on the recorder by the Master in The Power of the Doctor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So
I'm sorry, this is the song the Doctor's like singing, right?
Correct. It's called the Skyboat Song. You might know it as the theme tune from Outlander.
Wow, look at this.
Based on Jamie McCrinnan. Anyway, a lot of Doctor Who connections with that song.
Yeah.
Right, but yeah.
But they really ratchet up the tension, and I think I'll just say this, like Millie Gibson just continues to kick ass. Like, wow, is she the breakout star in my view? Like, again, I'm not saying I don't like Shudigawa. He's great. I think he did some amazing stuff here. The tears were a little much in places here and there, but again, it's all about, wrenching the emotions here. The thing about the tears, I guess I'll get that criticism out of the way right away, which is that you're asking the most emotive Doctor we've ever seen to get zen and calm down and us to believe it. And I think there was a bit of a disconnect there, particularly with some of the moments, like when she's literally shooting him in the arm. And I didn't quite get that, because I was like, well, is she shooting him? And how could that possibly not raise your adrenaline? And then there's even like a moment where Ruby shot, like you would think he would have a heart attack, and it does. That's not the moment where it sort of starts counting down to 0, essentially, right? So yeah, like, I mean, I guess you're getting so caught up in it, it eventually counts down to 0, and then everything kind of like gets to the point where it needs to. But I feel like that wasn't entirely fully thought through. But okay, rewinding a bit. Sorry, that was a lot. I'll let you respond in a minute, but I want to finish the whole thing about Millie Gibson, which is just like, holy cow. Like when she finds him for the first time, and I think this also has to do with Moffat's writing in scripting her perfectly, and that she comes up, she's trying to be playful, but then he's like, go off and save someone. And she's like, well, you need help. Like, and that's all very, he's like, priorities. That's a really good doctor line. Like, I'm not even screaming. That guy was screaming, go. Like, good, really good exchange. And then, of course, it's all crowned by her getting like within a couple of inches of the mine and their exchange about bravery and him being cross, etc. And it's really heartfelt. Oh my God, top marks.
Oh yeah, where she's like, he's like, Ruby, I forbid it, and she's like, oh yeah, good luck with that. She's got some fantastic lines, and it really, and it's unusual for Moffat. I love, by the way, that we are definitely getting like the I don't want to say sexless, but like the Doctor and Ruby, like, there's not even a question of like, will they, won't they? Are they going to hook up? Is there tension in the TARDIS? They're just buddies, and it's so good. And you really see in scenes like that how that can actually get deeper than a romantic connection, right?
Absolutely.
But yeah, let me just okay. First of all, the tears. I actually love the tears in terms of like releasing the tension that he needs to release to reduce his blood pressure. Like, you all know how you feel after a good cry, right? You're like, oh,
true.
So I actually, for me, that worked. And then, like, Shooty's grunts when he gets shot, like he's really trying to control it, like he's trying to stop hulking out at that moment, And I kind of felt that. But let me take us to a few more references. I'm not sure if you noticed the whole thing with the president's wife and the moon. Do you remember?
Oh, that had an echo. It reminded me of something. Was that the thing? I can't remember.
2 stories we've been to: Magician's Apprentice and Hellbent.
Right. Yes. Now I remember Magician's Apprentice, where Missy's relating the story at the beginning of. It's actually at the beginning of. I think it's at the beginning of the second one, which is familiar, right? Am I wrong about that?
I'm not
Maybe
sure.
I'm wrong.
Clara says, since when did you care about the Doctor? I've just got the dialogue here. Since always, she says Missy. Since the Cloisters Wars, since the night he stole the moon and the president's wife.
Oh no, yeah, it's when they're at the cafe. Yeah, it's earlier. You're right. It is in Magician's Apprentice. Yes.
When
one of those was a lie.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you guess which? Since he was a little girl, etc.
And then Hellbent, and I actually didn't realize that they sort of bookend the season with this. That Doctor says that was just a lie put about by the Shobogans. It was the president's daughter, and I didn't steal the moon; I lost it. And now apparently there's a poem about it, which he recites. So it's a lovely kind of thing where like these little Moffat-y Easter eggs are good for the fans, but they don't get in the way if you don't know what they're referring to.
I don't know if this is Davies or Moffat. It kind of feels like Davies, but another thing I really appreciated, and again, a great moment for Ruby, is where she takes a breath at what she's seeing, just the horizon and the sky and this alien planet. I love that. And again, we're a little bit of ways from Delta and the Bannerman, which we're going to do in a couple weeks, but so often, and certainly in Classic Who, and sometimes in New Who, people just sort of take all this alien stuff in stride because they, mostly for pacing reasons, they just kind of need to sort of get to the next thing or whatever. And it was a really good moment. Like, oh yeah, like, and the Doctor's even like has that. He actually, I think that's almost like his dialogue. Like, oh yeah, right. You haven't seen an alien sky before. Yep. There it is. By the
way, just in the file list under stable door and horses bolting, that was a spoiler. For our listeners who will not have listened to our Thin Ice podcast yet and do not know that Delta and the Bannerman is where the randomizers take us next. So,
oh my God, I just screwed up the Vegas odds. Whoever the bookies, I've blown it for you guys.
Oh,
the prediction markets are going crazy. I might have to edit this out in post. You know what? I'm not going to. Just to screw with those guys.
No, it's just a nice little Easter egg. We've been talking about Easter eggs.
Exactly.
Easter egg. But
it's getting timey-wimey, this podcast. It really is.
Well, speaking of, again, you've teed this up perfectly because we may be seeing an Easter egg and a spoiler for the future of Doctor Who because Verada Sethu is in it. She's the companion for the next season.
That's right.
Now, we don't
That's right.
know if Mundy Flynn, her character here, and yes, I agree with the Doctor, she should marry Ruby so she could be Mundy Sunday. So we weren't supposed to. It was actually on the list of spoilers for our screeners from Disney Plus. Like, do not reveal that she's in it. Which, first of all, hats off, keeping that secret, Disney. Well done. And secondly, what is this? Another souffle girl? What's going on here? What do you think, Pete?
It's a good question.
Yeah,
I hope so. Maybe they do get married. Who knows? I think it could just be a simple recasting. So maybe she's just playing a different character, and they're just going to be mundane about it.
Hey.
But I do feel like Doctor Who there's too many opportunities to not do something interesting, even if she is playing a different character, which technically back in Impossible Girl days she kind of was and kind of wasn't. You know what I mean? That was part of the mystery,
right?
So obviously they're not going to do the exact same thing again, and maybe they'll keep it simple. Yeah, I mean, we've seen, remember with Danny Pink, he looked a lot like his, descendants and whatever else. So, or maybe descendants because he died, right? He never had kids.
We'll see. You may remember the five of you who remember this from last week's hot take, in which I said headcanon, hey, maybe Verada Sethu, the new companion, is actually a regeneration of Susan. Because of the mention of Susan in Devil's Court, I felt like that was Moffat slapping me in the chops for daring to come up with that headcanon. But I'm going to hold on to it because, maybe it's a Peter Capaldi situation. Maybe Susan regenerates into someone the Doctor remembers recently. I don't know. Yes.
As long as they bring back Carol Ann Ford, that's a requirement because she's still around. I mean, she'll
83 years old.
Exactly. So we see an elderly Susan. She regenerates into someone. Good times. Passes the torch.
Yes, but by the way, I love I think this is maybe the second mention of Google after the immortal Peter Capaldi line reading "Google it."
That went by me. What was the Google mention?
The Doctor says, "Just shut up and Google it."
Oh, he does. Yeah. Does not quite as masterful as Peter Capaldi. Of course, that was a moment. That's obviously like a lot of emphasis in the early one. Well, speaking of Google, that's a good transition to one of the other themes I really liked about this, which was all the stuff about AI. And obviously a big deal in the world today. This was scripted. I'm not sure whether it's scripted or made, but it's probably put together sort of right around the time that ChatGPT was sort of debuting. And obviously AI has been a lot of things since before then. But I really like that the end of this is an AI defeating an AI.
Yes.
And, so it's kind of like, I don't think it's necessarily criticizing the entire idea of artificial intelligence. Certainly we've seen a lot of friendly robots and, things like K9 or whatever. But I do like the idea that we have passed so much decision making onto these things that it becomes a serious problem. And then, it's kind of like I'm always want to talk about this because, I've talked about this a little bit here and there before. Like, it's part of my job now. I teach AI to media people, communicators and stuff. One of the first things I teach people is that an AI is not indexing for the truth or any kind of morality. It is trying to satisfy whatever parameters you give it, which in current AI means a prompt. So this is the whole thing about the capitalism or whatever, and putting that aside. It's really just, it's trying to fulfill an algorithm.
Yes.
It's trying to just satisfy whatever that is, whatever someone has told it to optimize for. And so it wants to optimize for this maximum profit. It's just going to do that. And the Doctor says it in this sort of casual way, and it's almost too casual, but it's like, oh, yeah, of course that's what it's going to do. Now, that said, he does say it in a way that it almost implies everyone knows it. Now, he knows it because he knows this company and this era. But I got to say, like, I think this would be really scandalous if it actually came out that, this Villain Guard thing was just doing this all over the place. I hope they're, I don't necessarily think they have to do it in the show, but maybe this is good for a big finish of like the downfall of this in some future era where
that would be a
it's
great thing.
exposed.
Bring in John Barrowman for that one, because if Villengard made his Sonic Blaster, then he might be just the guy to bring him down.
There you go.
In the future, and maybe it's a prequel. I don't know, the story of how he got his Sonic Blaster while destroying this corrupt organization that kills people all over the place.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, speaking of the AI and the face of the AI and actors who keep recurring, Susan Twist, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
There she is. There is always the twist in the end, as we talked about the end of Devil's Cord last time we saw her. And yes, it's not a spoiler to say that she will keep recurring in the series.
Is this too subtle? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I get it. Like, I'm finally wised up to it, but I think we're super fans. We're watching this. We're scrutinizing it. We're talking about it. I think, like if you compare this with series 1, where it's like bad wolf, bad wolf, bad wolf, bad wolf, even a casual viewer who is going to pick up on that. I don't know if anyone's picking up on Susan Twist.
I like that though, because the thing that the casual viewer has their thing to pick up on, which is, it's snowing. Ruby somehow has the power to make it snow.
Right.
That's the thing. That's the bad wolf for them. But if you are a nerd and you're new to Doctor Who, and let's face it, there's like probably a 50% chance at least.
It's true. It's like, fandom is different today. That's, I was just making a comparison to series 1. And it's kind of an unfair comparison because just, sci-fi entertainment and genre entertainment is different in 2024 than it was in 2005. And I think that's, you're kind of answering my whole thing where it's like, it's totally okay because like most of the fan base is just intense now. It's just how fan bases are.
I think so. I had a revelation watching Boom that I'd like to share with you. So I received a diagnosis of an adult diagnosis of ADHD. I'm ADHD. And
you're coming out. You're on this podcast.
Of the ADHD closet.
This is it, folks.
Podcast because so fun fact, I watched this with my ex, and by the way, my ex's daughter plays the girl in it, the daughter who's orphaned in this.
Oh wow,
that was wild. Yes. Anyway, we're both ADHD, and we turn to each other during this, especially right at the end where the doctor is like, we'd looked at this sky for 2 minutes. Let's move on. We're like, the doctor's ADHD. Oh my goodness. We're like, oh my god, that like totally defines him. Like, and we've both just been spending this week listening to ADHD is Awesome. Pro tip, it's in the bestseller list right now. Love that book. But yeah, like so many of the boxes he ticks off here. It's extraordinary. And
I got to say that was one of the best lines where he goes, time to go. And by the way, your lifespan sucks.
That is how ADHD people think, but also what ADHD people want. And I think there's a fair number of them among the Doctor Who fans is like something really knotty and dopamine rich to get your teeth into after you've watched the show. And the Susan Twist thing, I think, is an example of that. Like it may, in retrospect, be more obvious than it is. If you're watching the season for the second time, which, by the way, another important part of Doctor Who, repeatability.
Absolutely, especially now that it's streaming.
Yes,
more repeatable than ever.
But the fact, like, we all want our little, we did our own research and we discovered this thing. And now we've got something over on the casual fans. That's how the casual fan transitions into the obsessive stuff like that. So
it's an easy thing to point out, an easy thing for people to go back and check and then pick up on. So doesn't require a lot of elaborate knowledge of previous things or just decoding of whatever. I think it's good. I think you're right. So a few other quick notes. I didn't finish the thought on the subtle thing that I picked up on earlier. So did the ambulance remind you of this service robot in The Mysterious Planet?
Wow, that's a deep cut. My goodness. Well, it does now. Yes.
Well, even the little cords that it shoots out. Do you remember like it would wrap up Colin Baker in sort of cords and stuff? Maybe this is too deep. Maybe in Stephen Moffat it wasn't conscious and it just sort of came out that way. But it really kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah, good call. Mysterious Planet, by the way, if you're not familiar, if you're one of those more casual fans, first part of Trial of the Time Lord in the Colin Baker era, we did not rate it very highly when we visited. So
No.
maybe
But
just
it
go
had its moments. It had its moments.
check out some production stills of the robot.
Another thing, again, that guy who is Sweet on Monday,
Yeah.
it's too bad about him, but you knew he was going to die. I mean, someone needed to die. It was a little bit of a cliche. Again, this doesn't ruin the thing, but again, there's a lot of. It seemed like I guess maybe my expectations were a little high because this was Stephen Moffat, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, he can't do Blink every single time. He's also
He
a little
can't.
bit out of practice. He had to get back in the rhythm. So I think this is a good one for him to sort of get back in the rhythm.
Yeah, not everyone is going to be a banger. This was, by the way, Moffat's 49th script for the show. 49th.
Wow.
And did you catch the news about the Christmas special?
Tell us the news about the Christmas special, Chris.
Moffat is writing it.
Oh,
It is his
yeah.
50th script, and it is called Joy to the World.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, and interestingly, Moffat gave an interview when he was still denying that he was writing for the show again, in which he used both the words boom and the phrase joy to the world in explaining why he wasn't going to write for the show. So, well done.
Oh,
Stephen.
I love him, but I hate him so much. Okay, another Moffatism here.
Yes.
The super long cold open.
Yeah.
You remember we did our whole show on cold opens, and
Yes.
he has the record. Well, no, he actually doesn't have the record because the record is Eve of the Daleks. But that said, he is probably the record of the most consecutive, lengthy cold opens
In terms
compressed
of
in time.
minutes that we had to watch for our side quest on all
Right.
the cold opens, and do go back and listen to that show, please, because we spent a lot of time on it. He cost us more minutes than anyone else.
Yeah,
for
but
sure.
I want to just be clear, not that I'm complaining. The cold open here was very good because it was very world building, made you care about these characters really quickly. It had just the right amount of teasing you with dialogue that isn't spelling things out, and even visuals that aren't spelling things out, and then you put it together. Like when I first saw the priest collars underneath their uniforms,
Yeah.
I thought, like, are those collars? No, I'm not sure. Are they? And then they sort of started talking about, okay. And then as a Doctor Who fan, you're like, oh, I think I even know what this might be referencing.
Right.
Right. But you there's enough there to tease you, intrigue you, pull you in, and just you're kind of right there with it as you're sort of learning about these characters. Just really smart. I mean, he's a great writer. He knows how to do it.
He really is, and to our point, we've said this many times on the show that Moffat and RTD, when they work together, they can be the Beatles of Doctor Who, and it's appropriate that we're discussing this right after the Beatles appearing in Doctor Who in Devil's Court. But they really are, and it's shown here again. And one of the things that Moffat has said in this interview is that he wrote a version of this script and then had to throw it out because RTD had pointed out, like, you're not getting the Doctor onto the landmine fast enough. He wanted more talkiness between the Doctor and Ruby before he steps on the landmine, and it was right, I think, that he didn't get it. Yeah, you really need the devil's Roomba, as I kind of think of that landmine.
That's pretty good.
Right?
Working title.
If you ever have a problem with kids stepping on the Roomba and it goes off by accident, show them this episode. They will never step on the Roomba again.
There might have been in there. This is one of my criticisms. It doesn't ruin the episode. In fact, this is just a me criticism. This is a Pete criticism. We're going into Pete's corner for a second here, where it's never really clear to me why the mind isn't just an explosive. You know what I mean? This is my common criticism of future-y stuff, where if the future thing isn't as effective as the regular thing, why is it even a future thing? And I guess the only thing I can figure out is that it's less messy. Yeah. And it's reusable. That's the other one where it's like, that's the second time someone steps on the mine because the other guy did it earlier. And so one, I guess that's it. It's reusable. So the minefield doesn't degrade every time someone steps on one. Right. The quantum thing seemed a little much though, but I guess you got to do something sci-fi if it's going to be in perfect condition every time.
Hey, he's a complex space-time event, don't you know?
Yeah. That was cool though. That it's like it does this thing to your body on a quantum level, but because the doctor sort of spans time and space, it would cause this devastation. That's a neat little twist. Very, very neat neat bit of plotting there, Stephen.
Yeah. It worked. It did the trick. Question for you: do you think that if Moffat hadn't sort of used up hand mines in The Magician's Apprentice, do you sort of feel like was one of his? You can almost see him circling it in his notebook. Hand mines! Exclamation point! Exclamation point! Hey, great idea. Do you think he would have used it here?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think the hand mines I would have been a little distracting. Like I feel like the hand mines with the eyes in them, they work as kind of a thing that you don't see a lot because if you're thinking about them too much and seeing them too much, you're probably thinking, wait, this is kind of nuts and actually look a bit silly. And I think that worked in that episode because it was so weighty as a character episode and as a morality play, and it sort of counterbalanced that somewhat. Like, is it just insane and silly, but yet it's deadly. So you kind of believed it. Here, I don't think it would have been as appropriate.
Nice.
It almost gives the mind a face, and I don't think it needs a face.
Good point. Yes, very good point. And nice pun on counterbalance, which of course is what the Doctor is trying to do with his not an urn, his rather fleshy corpse that's not a corpse there. It's kind of creepy. Then he has to spend a whole episode holding on to that.
Yeah, I mean, again, you can sort of headcanon it. Like, it doesn't make a ton of sense that they just turned into these things and leave them lying there. But you could come halfway and go like, well, it is lighter and more efficient, and you could argue something goes to collect them all at some point and get them to their next of kin, etc. That was a good little moment. Let's talk about that. Let's talk a little bit about Ruby getting shot. Number one, we barely touched on it, which was just holy crap. Like, what holy crap moment. Like, for me, like, holy, like, I can't believe the Doctor didn't just blow up right then and there, because I basically did. And then she falls. I thought it was great. Again, Millie Gibson, top marks. It leads to all that drama. One thing I think it could have gone even deeper. They could have really gutted us and actually showed some blood. Maybe that would have been too much. I don't know. I kind of wanted to see it because I like my problem with the ray guns. And again, this is my future device criticism applies here too. But I also just think it's like, what are they even doing if she's shooting the Doctor's arm and it's not even doing anything? And then Ruby gets shot a few times, and it's the situation that he sets up is so perfect. It's like, oh my God, he's like, oh my God, you did it. And then she falls down, and then it kind of felt like, well, wait a minute, the Doctor was okay. Is she going to be okay? And you're just like,
yeah, it doesn't seem to be even. I mean, I do like the idea that, Villain Guard is trying to perpetuate this war, right? When there's no actual enemy on the ground. So those guns are never actually supposed to be fired. So you could headcanon that with like, oh, it's just like, the gun is like choosing a random setting. I guess, the most likely event of those guns being fired will be, either into the mist because you think you saw something, or accidental friendly fire, right? So you would want to make sure that the accidental friendly fire doesn't completely kill your buddy.
I suppose. I mean, I don't want to be here all day, but she shoots the Doctor and doesn't seem surprised that it's a very low effect. I mean, she does talk about how she set it to basically 1% or whatever when she asks Ruby to shoot her. So there is some kind of setting that keeps it really, really low. And maybe that doesn't really take much headcanon to think that, okay, she just kept it super, super low when she shot the Doctor, like the 1% setting, and that guy had it on 100 or whatever, 90, 40, something bad.
Right.
But yeah, I would have, again, like
set to kill.
Doctor Who rarely shows blood. I think maybe they're just skittish about it, particularly since this is, much further in the future than Attack of the Cybermen, and Attack of the Cybermen wasn't all that well received, even though we'll go ahead and listen to our podcast on Attack of the Cybermen. I have some things to say about that scene, but if there was a scene where I think it was called for and you really kind of want that moment, like I always think about that moment in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade where his father gets shot at the end, and someone lifts their hand, I think, and there's blood all over it. You know what I mean? Like that's that moment of like, oh my God, this is serious when you have that moment.
And my goodness, thank you for once again for teeing up the last thing I wanted to raise. And it's a two-part
Is
question.
it Indiana Jones?
No, the dad-to-dad thing. Okay, first of all,
Right,
the
yeah.
Doctor describing himself as a dad. Wow.
Totally.
We're clearly, we talked in the last hot take about RTD as like staring what the Doctor is right in the face is another example of that. And that turns out to be the thing, right? Activates the mind virus of the other dad. Did
it's
you
actually
like that? And then also, what did your kids think of this story?
so the dad-to-dad thing. Again, I don't think there's enough there to fully unpack, and I don't want to say this confirms anything because he's talked about being a father and having a family before, but that really seemed to say to me he's not just a father, like he's a family man. Like he raised someone. He doesn't just have Jenny or whatever out there, even though he obviously had feelings for Jenny, but it was like
Right.
that's what it feels like.
It's not like he sent Susan's mother or father. I think we still don't know which one, right? To boarding school the whole time on Gallifrey. I was like, had no interaction with them.
We've kind of inferred stuff, but I think this is giving us the strongest hint I've ever seen that he was a family man at some point.
Yeah.
So that was good. So I watched this with Grace. Jack had an ultimate frisbee game, so she really liked it. She was super into it. She was very quiet throughout. Like I think she it's the suspense, right? Like she was just really, really on the edge of her seat. My wife was there, also enjoyed it. They really liked the new Doctor and this whole dynamic. It's going well.
But holy crap! What a father-daughter episode! My goodness, they should have saved this for Father's Day.
Yeah, really.
Well, there might already be a Doctor Who with that title, but yeah, like I really I felt that. So I imagine it was great for you guys to have a bonding moment over a story that's about dads and daughters.
Yeah, she really liked it. Yeah, she was into it. So like I say, she was quiet. I didn't press her too much on what she thought of it, but she did say she liked it. So hopefully she wasn't too traumatized by it.
Yeah, just whatever you do, don't step on a Roomba.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, that heavy responsibility now.
So how about that teaser for another episode of Doctor Who? They keep making these, Chris.
I know, and I can't talk about it.
You can. What does that imply? Something that implies that there might be some information about this episode in your brain somehow.
Yeah, you might very well think that. I certainly cannot comment on 73 yards.
Yeah.
But
It looks. I'll just say it looks really cool. I love what it really struck my wife and daughter is just the outfits again, and he keeps changing outfits, and it's just like we knew this already that he was just going to wear clothes essentially and change outfits every time. But that first little bit of the tease where he walks out and he's in sort of bundled up. I'm going hiking out in Wales, I don't know, rural Wales or wherever it is under the cliffs.
Wales.
Yeah, he's got the hat. He's got all this stuff. It's like, oh, he's ready. Like he doesn't just have the TARDIS wardrobe. He's got a whole Uniqlo in there or something. Like. Do
you want to spoil it? That means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, give it to me.
That's the only costume the Doctor wears in the episode.
Oh, okay, all right.
I don't know how I know that. It just sort of came to me.
Well, it sounds like he's kind of not really in it for good chunks of it. So anyway, from the look of it, but I'm guessing the cool moment in the trailer from way back where the TARDIS is just super old on this outcropping somewhere, and there's cobwebs or whatever, and bird's nest growing on it. That's probably in this one, but you don't have to tell me. Cool. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to hot taking that one in a week. Assuming the stars align, these are going pretty well so far. I don't want to overpromise here, but I will tell you, Pool to Open listeners, that in just a little over a day, you're going to finally get our commentary on Thin Ice. It's not coming Saturday. It is coming Sunday, because this is coming at you Friday night, and we don't want to hit you with like a couple of layers of podcast delight within a couple of hours of each other. So
we do not want
watch
to
for that.
Who indigestion. I think you need a day to relax after Shooty dropped the mic literally in Boom. So yeah. But
Yeah, so tell us what you thought of it. We'll have a poll here. Go ahead and if you're on Spotify, scroll up, swipe up from the bottom of the screen. Let us know what you thought of this episode. Also, just let us know what you thought of it on the socials, everyone. We're at Poll to Open 63 on X, on Twitter, on Instagram. Some of those are the same. And Facebook.
Which just shut up and Google it.
Exactly. Poll to Open on TikTok and Blue Sky, a few other places. Subscribe to our newsletter for full notes on our randomly selected episodes. So that's at polltoopen.net. Check that out. Come on back. Post some commentary again. Thin Ice coming up in about 24 hours, maybe a little longer.
Yeah, I'm excited. Can't wait to see where we go next after Thin Ice Random Adventure. That'll be fun. All right. Well,
Who
take care,
knows?
folks. Thank you so much for joining us, and boom. Enjoy dropping the mic on your weekend, everyone. Take care.
Boom! You're welcome.